there must be no publication of anything said in the hearing between 10:21 and 10:23. This may seem odd and arbitrary, but can I assure those in the hearing room that there is good reason for the order, and may I ask, as well as insist, that it is complied with. Mr. Barr.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Morris, when you were operating undercover, did you ever address your mind to whether it was ethically permissible to engage in sexual activity in your cover identity?
I clearly did, to some ethically. Ethically in terms of the service, or ethically in terms of my own perspective?
Both.
Both. In terms of my own perspective, for sure. In terms of the service, possibly. Probably.
What were your thoughts on that subject?
Well, my thoughts were that were it all possible, that should not be the case. In terms of the service, there was zero guidance on that issue. And no assistance, actually.
But you knew that police officers must not act in a way which would bring the service into disrepute.
Well, this is where you and I often come into a bit of a difference, because you talk about the police in general, and I talk about national security operations of the special branch, which I conceive as two different things.
Was there a sense then that you were in a special category because you were doing that sort of...
No, there's a sense that we were 1%, maybe 2% of the police service that dealt with national security operations, and that this was a top secret operation, and that we were performing tasks in terms of national security. And what I will also say is, in the course of our work, going through my previous work, I'd seen many instances where you would suggest that things should not be the case. So if I mention Cyril Smith example, right, I'll leave it that far. I was on the South African section. Just to explain that the Bureau of State Security was very active. And so therefore...
Mr. Morris, can you answer my question, please?
I am answering the question, because I'm answering the question in a way that I can explain what I mean. So therefore, I knew that when we saw activity like what was going on, we would pass that activity forward, and sometimes that activity would be perceived as not in the public interest to go any further. So even when it was clear-cut, I could see issues that weren't clear-cut in the national security area, which would have been in the criminal area.
Did you or did you not think it was ethical?
I think I answered that in the first instance to you.
So that we are clear what your answer is, yes or no.
As I said before, morally, in my mind, it was probably not ethical. It's a loaded statement. Clearly not ideal, clearly not the best thing to do. But then, of course, there's a lot of different issues that come into play in terms of, obviously, one, maintaining cover, but more importantly, you not being who you think you are at the time.
That's a completely separate issue,
I don't think it is.
Are you able to give me a yes or no answer?
I can give you a straightforward yes or no answer as me sitting here not involved in that activity. But for me to give you a yes or no activity whilst involved in that activity, it's completely different. And you have to understand my mindset at the time.
I'm going to give it one more try, Mr. Morris.
And I can only answer it in the same way. I'm not trying to be, what's the right way? I'm not trying to avoid the question. I'm just trying to say to you, if I sit here and say one thing, that's great. But in the circumstance I was in, it's something completely different.
Did you consider that the rules were different because you were doing what you describe as national security work? by which I mean working for the SDS.
Working for Special Branch, yeah. Clearly there was no... I'm sure you're aware that I asked for a female partner to be provided, and that assistance was not given, and I was told to deal with the issue that had come to me by myself. It was very difficult.
We're going to come on to that later. My question was, did you consider that the rules were different as an undercover police officer?
Not as an undercover police officer, as a Special Branch officer in that type of work. Purely and simply because I had agents that would be doing the same. By that I mean sources of intelligence that were doing the same, which you'd call chizzies, I guess, today, in general police work, who were doing the same.
They're not police officers, are they, Mr. Morris?
No, but you're asking a question of morals, and I'm trying to answer you on that perspective. The big problem is if you don't want that to come to the light at all, you shouldn't have police doing it at all. If that's what you're going to say. You're putting people in an invidious position.
Did you address your mind to whether it would be lawful to engage in sexual activity?
I didn't think it was not lawful. I don't think there's anything that said it wasn't. I don't think it was unlawful.
My question was, did you address your mind to it? Did you think about it?
That's years ago now. Did I think whether it was lawful? If I did think whether it was lawful, I wouldn't have thought it was unlawful, put it that way, in terms of the law.
You were interviewed by officers from Operation Hearn, weren't you?
Correct.
In 2013. Could we have up, please, 722645? This is the record of your interview with Operation Hearn officers. Could we go to page 10, please? Thank you. The very bottom of the page, it's the very last thing recorded in the interview. It reads, sexual relationships. Morris stated that he had no idea whatsoever about Bob Lambert's sexual relationships prior to the media stories, and similarly had never heard of any other comparable circumstance. Does that accurately record what you told Operation Hearn?
Yeah, it does.
Is it right that you knew nothing whatsoever about Mr. Lambert's 4 sexual relationships, one of which had given rise to the birth of TBS?
Absolutely. No idea whatsoever.
Are you sure that nobody ever mentioned?
I'm sure I had no idea whatsoever about that.
Similarly, had never heard of any other comparable circumstance?
Compared to Bob Lambert? No, never.
You did not tell the Operation Hearn officers that you had engaged in sexual activity with 2 women, did you?
As far as I recollect, I probably didn't. They never asked me in that sense, I don't think.
Are you sure?
I'm not sure. I don't think they asked me outright. I'm not sure. I'm not sure at all.
These are officers who were investigating that very issue. To my mind, when they came to me, from my recollection, they were more interested in the issue of connection with the Lawrence family. That was my recollection of it. You knew that they were investigating, amongst other things, sexual relationships between undercover police officers and members of the public? No, I didn't. They came to me out of the blue. I spoke to them. I've had very little contact with officers since I left. And they came to me out of the blue
spoke to me about this issue. That was it. In fact, I don't think I've had contact with any ex-SDS officer.
Can we take that down, please, and have up 37218? This is a document from the inquiry's proceedings. This is an impact statement which you made in November 2017.
Okay, some years later, presumably.
If we look at paragraph 24, under the heading Intimate Relationships, says, I have been asked about the above, and the references at RA 413 to allegations about a relationship with a woman named B.
Mm-hmm.
So by this stage, an allegation had been made. Mm-hmm. If we look down at paragraph 25, see what you say. While working undercover, I was the subject of advances from one woman involved with the SWP, had one or two brief one-off sexual encounters with women unconnected with my work, which I would not describe as relationships, and had an intimate relationship with B. I cannot remember B's full first name or her surname, but do recall roughly where she lived.
Very roughly, yeah.
First of all, one or two
Right, it's one.
brief one-off sexual encounters.
Mm.
Why would you have said one or two if it was only one?
Don't know. That's why it says one or two, but clearly one.
Mr. Morris, is the reality there was more than one?
No, that's not the reality.
And are you clear that I'm asking you about any form of sexual activity with any member of the public whilst you were in your undercover identity?
Yeah.
And so the one that you're giving evidence of is Jenny.
Yeah, must be, yeah.
Any others?
No, I'm saying it must be Jenny, yeah.
Moving to B, being very careful not to say anything which would or might identify B.
Mm-hmm.
You could not at that stage remember her full first name or her surname.
Correct. I still really don't know her full first name. And her surname I had forgotten. I'm guessing from what I called her, what her full first name is, but I never really knew her full first name.
Can we take that as an indication of how seriously you took this relationship?
No. It's just that that was what I called her in a shortened name, which could be shortened for several different full names, I'm guessing. I don't know.
We'll come to the details in a short while, but you did have a relationship which you described as, I think, on-off or something like that.
For quite a long time.
Your words, for about a year or so.
Yeah, quite a long time on-off.
And you don't...
I think she described it as that as well, maybe the last half of it.
And you don't remember her name?
A full name? No, I don't. I do now, obviously, because I've seen it, but I couldn't remember it at that time. As I said to you, when I left that organisation, I dumped everything out of my mind. And I'm not so sure I ever knew her full first name.
Can we move now to your deployment? And you have given evidence in your witness statement of, and again we're protecting the identity, an influential female within the SWP, you say, coming on to you. Was, I'm understanding your written evidence to be that was before you had met B.
Correct.
And before, therefore, you had started any relationship with her.
Correct.
And you say she accused you of being a spy.
Correct.
and you raise that back at the office.
Correct.
Again, being careful not to utter any name you shouldn't name, using the cipher list if you need to. Who did you raise it with?
For sure, I raised it with 86. Sorry, HN 86. And potentially also HN 67. But I definitely with HN 86.
That is much more certain evidence than you've given on paper on that question. Why are you so much...
Is it much more certain I did on paper? What did I write? Could you show me what I wrote on paper? Sorry.
Yes, we'll come to that. Yeah, page 23 of the witness statement, please, which is 35076.
Okay.
On page 24, please, so the next page. Let's pick it up from luckily. Luckily, as I had been made aware in advance, I was ready to respond to this, and I denied the allegation and seemingly satisfied SWP woman and others that I was not a spy. This led to me raising this issue with DCI HN86 or possibly his replacement, as I cannot recall who the DCI was when this occurred.
Right, this is a good point you're making. As I said here, to my mind, I write it down, I say, this led to me raising the issue with DCI 86. That's what I thought it was. Then I must have rethought it through in my mind, and I said to you, the timings are not great for me, or it could be his replacement. I think it's 86. But it could be, but if the timings are correct, I'm pretty sure it's 86. That's what I'm saying. And I'm pretty sure there. But then I put the possibility in that it could have been the next guy. But I think it's 86. In fact, is it not the other way around? Was not the other guy before 86? Could you tell me that?
I think, Mr. Morris, we're in the position where you give the evidence and I ask the
No, I accept that, but you know the information. You know the timelines. And I've said throughout that my timelines are not good.
Yeah, understood.
So I'm trying to give you all the evidence I can, as truthfully as I can.
Understood.
So what I'm asking really is, was the other DCI before 86? It's just a simple question.
Understood, Mr. Morris. I'm going to ask you that conversation, what is your recollection of what was said?
Right. Basically what I said was, to bring it forward and to be more fully embracing, prior to the problem I had with you don't name her, so with the SWP woman, as you call her, one, if not more, SWP man had spoken to me in the same field. We were gay men had spoken to me. And I said, I'm not gay. So the problem is, when the woman spoke to me, I now know I've got a problem, which is why I brought it to them. Because I've turned her down, and I've turned a man down, I've now turned a woman down. Why am I turning people down? This is a big problem that I've now got. So I go to this DCI, and as I said, it could also be the DI, may have been there, I don't know. And I said to him something to, again, I can't remember exactly how I said it, but something to this about I need some coverage here from somebody from the branch to cover me, from the special branch to cover me, female, yeah, to say this is my girlfriend or whatever. To which he said something like, we don't do that. You'll have to sort it out yourself.
Was there any reference to your wife and children when you were discussing this?
None whatsoever. You mean from me or from him?
From either side?
Right. Well, clearly I was saying I don't want to do it, but the reality was he didn't mention it, and he said, we just don't do that. I said, well, I need somebody to cover me, because otherwise I'm in trouble.
Was there any reference to any steps that you might take?
What, on my own, you mean?
To do, well, you've told us that you were told to sort it out yourself.
Correct.
Was there any discussion as to how you might do that?
He just said, sort it out yourself.
Was there any discussion about how other UCOs had dealt with this same or similar issues?
No, not from my recollection. I'm saying that's not from my recollection. I don't know if he did, but from my recollection, as I sit here now, I don't want to put negatives into his mouth. As I sit here now, I do not recall him saying somebody else did this or somebody else did that. As I sit here now, my recollection is that he said, you're going to have to sort that out.
If we get your witness statement up again, please. Page 155, paragraph 204. 35076. And looking under little a, about halfway down the page, you say, after the incident when the influential SWP woman had expressed the view that I was a spy as a result of my turning down her advances, it may be that I took up with B to rebut any further suspicion. I cannot say that is the actual reason, but it may well have been a subconscious factor. In the impact statement, I say that I vaguely recall someone suggested that a relationship with a woman other than the influential SWP woman might create a distraction and calm the situation down. This is correct, but I cannot now say who said this. This was during the conversation when I made SDS management aware of the problem and when I was told to sort the matter out myself. What is your recollection now about a suggestion that a relationship with a woman other than the influential SWP woman might create a distraction?
As I said to you, it may well have been said, but I don't recollect it.
Can you recall anybody at any other time saying anything to that effect or anything vaguely similar?
You're asking really difficult memories to... I can't... as with all of the process, what you've been asking is to be absolutely certain. And to be fair, it's very difficult to be absolutely certain unless it's really impactful on something that happened, like, you know, you are a spy. And in fact, how that worked, she didn't tell me that I was a spy. It was in the branch committee meeting, and I remember this because, you know, it made me shiver. Two of the people in that meeting, and yes, they were women because the vast majority of people in the SWP were women, one of them said to me, do you know what? She's been saying you're a spy. Right? So that's what it was. She was saying I was a spy, which is what I've related here, but I didn't go through the whole story. So I can't argue that somebody didn't say something else, but I can't recall that being the case now as I sit here.
Going to move now to B.
Yep.
You met in around March 1992, didn't you?
If those are the timings, that's what you're saying, then that's the case.
And did you meet at a meeting?
Again, I think just yesterday when I was looking through some of the bits on there, I said it was somewhere else, but she said it was a meeting, so maybe it is a meeting.
Can we take the statement down, please, and have up the document which is at tab 39, 740395. Could we move past the attached minute sheet, please, to page... Thank you. This is a report dated the 11th of March 1992 about the East End Offset Limited, which is the print shop of the Socialist Workers' Party. And it's all about that. And at page 6 on page 3, paragraph 6 on page 3, it says, recently, a precedent has been set insofar as the SWP has broken with tradition and security and has employed a non-member within the print shop. The new employee, B, will begin her duties in telesales in the coming weeks in the hope that she will be able to canvass more work on behalf of the print shop. So why did you include B
I didn't.
in this report?
I didn't, and I've said that to my legal team. As far as I'm concerned, I didn't write that report.
Can we move now to take that down and have 28336? This is a second report which refers to B. This is a report on an individual dated the 14th of April 1992, stamped box 500, so it went to the security service. Below that, if we can expand the stamp, that stamped as being filed as one of your reports, isn't it?
But there's a different reference there, isn't there? You're putting 78, but they're putting a different reference, aren't they?
If you could take that down. We have ciphered the reference.
Yeah, sure.
This is a report on B, isn't it?
Yes. You see, what I said to my legal team is very clear. To me, because I know nothing about the bookshop, the print shop, I said, I think that is an agent that either we, MPSB, or the security service have in the print shop, not me.
Mr. Morris, the documents were being provided by
It may say my name on it, but it's not me.
the MPS to the security service. We've had evidence about how SDS documents
Correct.
came to be filed.
Correct.
This is one of your
And
reports,
no,
isn't it?
and I've said to you on several reports you've mentioned throughout this period that some of those reports are not mine. And I say, example, the one that said coloured the other day, I'd never use that language. So I'm saying to you now, this is not my report. And I said before, I've never put a report in on who you're calling B.
Mr. Morris, by this stage, you knew B, didn't you?
Yeah, and I've said it's not my report.
Can we have a look at the text at the bottom of the page? Thank you. B was the first non-member of the SWP to be employed in the SWP print shop, East End Offset. However, recently she has joined the Hackney South branch. You knew that B was a member of the SWP, didn't you?
Yeah, of course I do. Yeah.
She has been put in charge of publicity for Marxism as pertains
That I don't know.
to advertisements.
That I don't know. That's the point I'm making to you. This is not my report. I don't know what she was doing there. And I definitely don't know whether she was put in charge of anything from any side. I'm saying to you now that there was an agent in the print shop. By agent, you know what I mean by an agent. Okay, that's what we use, a paid informant, if you will. In that print shop, either from us, MPSB, or from the security service. This is not my report. About that, I am adamant.
Did you or did you not know at this stage in your relationship with B what she did for a living?
I didn't have a clue that she was in. I think I knew she was in the print shop. I did not know what she did within the print shop, as I had no connection to the print shop.
You are an SDS officer, and as we've seen from the reports we've been over for 2 days, you were hoovering up a great deal of detail
Correct.
about a lot of people.
And as you know, again, when I've done that, I've put a reason in for doing that. To my mind, knowing her, I saw no threat in any way, shape or means, either be violent or be it in terms of, well, it doesn't need to be violence, but in terms of subversion or in terms of counterintelligence. To my mind, there was nothing that suggested that there needed to be a report on her. That simple. Hence, no report from me.
You've put in countless reports on individuals. We looked
Whom
at
I thought were either involved in subversion, counterintelligence, or violence, or furthering the aims of the SWP, which works in that field.
Mr. Morris,
She was not.
We went to one yesterday.
Could you show me the one?
Who you told me was just a rank and file member of the SWP.
Rank and file doesn't mean that there's not a reason why you should be reported on. Example, if you go back, the rank and file person of the SWP who was going nowhere within the SWP at all, the young lady that I said to you had mental health problems, I put a report in on her because I thought she was potentially dangerous. So there's a reason for it. With B, there is zero reason.
Mr. Morris, you will be aware that B says that she wasn't in charge of publicity for Marxism.
So that might have helped me then, because I would have known what she was actually doing, is what you're saying.
What I'm going to suggest to you now is that you overstated the position in
Why
this
would I do that?
report. Well, why would you do that? Were you
There's
trying to...
There's zero advantage from me in overstating anything. Why would I do that? So I'm trying to ask you, what's the point of me overstating a position?
If we carry on, this particular position enhances her regular work as a telesalesperson from the print shop. Although the subject is active in the Anti-Nazi League, her membership of the SWP would seem to be more pragmatically based than ideologically, believing her employment is more secure as a party member.
Well, you just said to me again that I should know things, and I knew that it wasn't her intention to just stay working in the print shop, that she was doing other things. So again, this just rings not true to me. So the reason that's put in is because as I said before, I think there's an agent in the print shop who wrote that to provide intelligence.
It's true, isn't it, that B was not pragmatic. She was a ideologically paid up member of the SWP.
To be fair, when I knew B, I wasn't certain how committed she was to the SWP. She was committed to anti-racism. She was committed to doing the best to people in society, as in my recollection of her. She was a fairly decent person insofar as she aimed and hoped to assist people. But I would have never put her down, and I was surprised when she said she stayed in the SWP for so long, to be fair.
Could we take that down, please? And could we have up B17 28309? Thank you. Again, top left, you will see that this is an event pro forma which has been filed by the Security Service as one of yours, dated the 29th of April 1992. It's about an event forthcoming at Alexandra Palace. Social workers, SWP, were organising it. It's the SWP's May Day rally. This event was a big deal, wasn't it?
Generally, yeah.
Well, generally they went to Skegness, but here they were having a May Day.
This is why I'm saying generally, because I think this is the first time I was sort of aware of this one. So yeah, you're right, they must have gone to Skegness before. Yes.
If we look at the text below, the May Day rally is presently the major channel for all SWP activity. With slightly more than 1 week to the event, only 1,500 tickets had been purchased. The party was paid £33,000 for the rental of the premises, but recently a mistake was made by Privacy when he waited until last Thursday to inform the media officer, B, to enter the rally in free listing publications such as City Limits, with the result that publicity will not reach the targeted public in sufficient time. B's evidence is she was not the media
Well,
officer.
this is my point, because I wouldn't know this.
Can I ask you, first of all, was B the media officer?
I don't know. This is the point I'm making. This is all bookshop orientated, print shop orientated, and proves absolutely my point. I do not know what happened in that.
Were you writing reports which exaggerated the importance of some of the people that you were reporting upon?
No, but I can imagine that that what you would call an informant, an agent would. Look, I don't need to exaggerate reports. Why? There is zero advantage to an SDS officer, well, definitely from my perspective, to exaggerate, because there's enough stuff to write about. I have no recollection of this at all because it isn't mine.
Can we take that down, please? I'd like to ask you now a little bit about what might be called the getting to know one another phase of your relationship. It's right, isn't it, that she let you know that she was a single mother?
Yep.
And did that happen at a fairly early stage?
I cannot recall what the getting together phase was, but so I can't say yes or no. I would imagine it would have done. I would imagine it would have been.
And she let you know that she had 2 young children?
Yep.
We are protecting the precise age of the children
Okay.
for privacy reasons. But you have estimated them in your statement as 4 and 5. Might you have been mistaken about that, and might
Absolutely,
they have been a
because
bit younger?
Could have been, as I said to you, my memory is very poor and I couldn't remember, so I put down what I thought was the circumstance. It could be younger, could be a bit older, I don't know.
And she let you know that she had been in a violent
No,
relationship?
don't recall that.
Are you sure?
Yes, I don't recall that. I'm not saying she didn't, I'm saying I do not recall it.
The children had contact with their father at B's parents' house.
Again, I know nothing about that.
You say you know nothing about that, despite being
And
involved with her for about a year.
Mr. Bart, I know nothing about the relationship with B's children and the father at all.
You were aware that being a member of the SWP, because there were creche facilities, enabled her to get out and meet people.
I actually don't remember the creche facilities.
Or childcare facilities?
I mean, obviously it's not something that came into my mind. I'm not familiar about childcare facilities for people coming to meetings. Not at all.
Were you aware that opportunities to get out socially for her were rare because she was a single mother?
I'm thinking because I'm not sure that I was aware of that. Obviously, if you had friends, and she did have friends, maybe the friends would have looked after the children. So I'm not going to turn around and say I was aware that opportunities were limited. No, I wouldn't say that. But on the other hand, not knowing the circumstance with her friends, I can't say that she would have left them with the friends. So I don't really know.
And that she was just beginning to do so, just beginning to
Don't
get
know
out
about that
and start
either.
to socialise again.
I don't recall that being just beginning to socialise again. I don't know.
You told her that your previous relationship was over.
No, I told her that my previous relationship was probably over, but my intention was, as I think I said that to everybody because that was part of my legend, was to get back if I could with my wife and children.
You told her that you had 2 children who you missed a great deal.
Absolutely correct.
And you told her that you had destroyed your previous relationship by committing a grave sexual indiscretion.
Absolutely correct.
You also gave her to understand that you were a bit of a ladies' man and had not been at all faithful to your...
That, I would say, is not the case fully, no.
What did you give B to understand about how faithful you had been to your fictional ex-wife?
I said I wasn't particularly faithful at all because of the activity that I did which caused the split up. And I'd said that on purpose because I wanted anybody whom I connected with to think, well, her, to be fair, let's be realistic, her to think that there's no future with this guy.
Had you told her that you had been a DJ in Germany?
Correct.
And that a lot of women had found you attractive and you had...
Not particularly, no.
You had sex with a number of...
I didn't say that a lot of women found me attractive. I didn't say that. I don't think. I mean, I can't...
Did you give her to understand that you had had a number of sexual relationships with German women whilst you were a DJ in Germany?
That isn't my recollection, but I may have said it. I don't think I've said it in the fashion that you are saying it, if that were the case. But that may have... No, I don't even think I would have said it that way, to be fair. I don't think I said it like that, no, not at all.
When did you decide that having committed a grave sexual indiscretion would be part of your legend?
That was probably when I actually got into this circumstance. And the reality is that I didn't want it to be perceived that I was somebody that you could rely on, in the first instance, or you could rely on. And secondly, I had to cover why I was saying I wanted to get back with my wife, but I was in England. So I knew I'd had to cover that somehow. Why would I be in England and not in Germany? So it was going to be part of my legend, regardless, because I had to say why I was sitting in England when I should have actually, if I was trying to get back with my wife, to sit in Germany.
That's what I'm driving at, Mr. Morris. You must, as you say, you must have thought about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm asking you, when did you think about that? Did you think
It
about
might
that?
have been in the legend to start off with. but I don't know if I utilise it. So, this is a misunderstanding. I don't know if I utilise it straight away.
So you had decided, is it fair to say then you had decided whilst building your legend that part of it would be grave sexual indiscretion, broken your marriage, explained why you...
Not necessarily grave sexual indiscretion, but that I had a broken marriage. I was going to get back with my wife somehow, by hook or by crook. But I then realised as time went on, when you're in this, doing this particular role, you don't know what you're going to say. It's not all planned out ahead of time. And you don't know what you're going to say until you're actually performing it. So things grow as you're doing it. And maybe sometimes you say something that now you're in trouble, so you've got to keep with it. And that may have grown that way. It wasn't an ideal thing, but I knew I had to cover why am I here and not in Germany.
You've made very clear to us, Mr. Morris, that you were using these details in your legend to signal that you were not a long-term prospect.
Correct.
Did you do that when you were in fact building your legend, anticipating there might be...
No, because I never
activity?
anticipated at that level. But I knew that once it started to happen, that I had to come up with something. There's just too many questions. And you had to cover it. But this is what I'm saying. You don't... Look, I've done a lot of undercover work before in various organisations. This is I'm talking about before I was on SDS. And I realised in doing that you have to somehow think on your feet. So I'd never built my legend totally like some others might have done. It was fluid. But what I did realise is that once you say something, you've now got to remember it and stay with what you said.
You flattered Bea, didn't you?
How do you mean flattered her?
I mean, you flattered her. You paid her attention, talked to her.
Of course,
you
yeah.
flattered her.
Of course. No,
you took an interest in her.
I took an interest in her. That's a better way of putting it, yeah.
I don't want any details, but when the relationship became physical, you made the first move, didn't you?
I don't know.
You're saying you can't remember?
I don't know whether I made the first move or not. I can't remember. Maybe she did, maybe I did. I don't know.
Is this a matter of such inconsequence to you that you can't remember?
Can you remember what first move you did? I mean, this is what I'm saying. I don't know. You're asking me to be realistic. I'm being realistic. I don't know who first moved across to try and kiss her or her tried to kiss me. I don't know. I don't have a clue. It's not that it's inconsequential. It's that you can't remember these things, especially when they're 30 years ago.
It became a sexual relationship.
It did. That's a factor.
At an early stage.
Oh, you mean in knowing her, you mean?
Yes.
Probably, yeah, I would imagine.
Did you recognise that in her circumstances at the time, she would be particularly receptive to the attention that you were paying her?
How would I? I didn't know what her circumstances were. Unless you mean as a single mother, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Well, there's 1,001 single mothers, so she's not particularly receptive to anything.
And as a single mother coming out of a violent relationship.
I don't know about the violent
with
relationship.
young children.
I don't know about the violent relationship, and as I say, there's 1,001 single mothers in London as we speak right now, and there were back then 30 years ago. That's not particularly abnormal.
When you crossed the line into a sexual relationship, did you give any consideration to the fact that you were a police officer in an undercover identity?
To be fair, by then, I was probably an activist going about their work as an activist.
Mr. Morris, by this stage, you had been undercover for months, not years, hadn't you?
And by this stage, I was on the branch committee. I was a total activist. It doesn't need to be years. I had subsumed myself into the organisation. I felt I was a comrade, and that's as I was. I had neglected my own family, etc., etc.
Well, Mr. Morris, we went with some care through the reports earlier in your evidence.
We did.
And you don't start reporting consistently on the SWP until about December 1991. This relationship is starting in about March 1992.
And I've been in other organisations previously as we went through. And the reality is that I was already, as I said, and I'll say it again, I was already an activist, fully involved, fully entrenched, fully part of the system. And as I tried to explain to you the other day, I was basically ashamed in one way that I was doing that, but always tried to drag myself back as to why I was doing it.
Why?
This is a mindset thing. I don't know why.
Why were you doing it? If you say you were thinking about why you were doing it, why were
Because
you?
I believed I was doing for the good of the nation. I believed this was a subversive organisation. I was doing for the good of the nation.
Are you talking now about infiltrating the SWP or sleeping with B?
I'm talking about infiltrating the SWP, and I'm talking about my mindset as it related to B.
You were filing at least the reports we've seen and maybe others that we've not been able to retrieve.
On whom?
On all the topics we're looking at.
On the topic we looked at, but
You
never filed a report on B at all. So
You are filing reports
Absolutely.
about various subjects,
Absolutely.
and you are writing things up and handing them into
Absolutely.
the office.
Because that is my role and that's my task. And it's something that you can look at any of the officers who are carrying this role out, any of them, and you will find they were filing reports, but it doesn't mean to say that they were fully still, in any way, shape or means, in perception of being a police officer doing police work. Indeed, without the 2 days, frankly, you wouldn't have been dragged back into it at all.
But you did have the 2 days. You were going to 2 meetings
Correct.
a week.
Correct. For about 2 hours, 3 hours maybe.
You knew full well that you were a police officer when you began a sexual relationship with B, didn't you?
Absolutely. But I also knew, and I could tell you what was going on, that my primary perspective of myself was that I was an activist in the SWP.
Can I come back to my original question? As a police officer,
Well, we know what we're going to
entering
say.
into a sexual relationship undercover, what consideration did you give to the fact you were a serving undercover police officer?
Well, you know, we spoke about that before, and I keep saying it, that we were in a different role. This was a totally and utterly non-judicial operation. It's an intelligence-led operation, has nothing to do with a judicial operation. Let me just explain. And because of that, I knew that for the rest of my life, when I stopped doing this role, that I have to keep my head down and that I would never be able to show myself as I really was. This is why that when I was at home, I never laughed because people could understand my laugh. This is why I never took my children to anything to do with their schooling, never took them to hospital, never took them to a doctor, never saw their plays, and this was going on from day one. This is why some of our other colleagues, which you'll know of, never open the curtains in their house, etc., etc., etc. This is something that plays with your mind, and your mental health is destroyed. So this is what I'm trying to tell you.
Can I take it from your answers that you did not give any thought whatsoever to the fact you were a police officer when you commenced a sexual relationship with B?
Maximum, I would say, was that I thought about maintaining cover, but I don't even think that's true. As I said, it could well be that psychologically I was maintaining cover, but on the other side, it might be I was just living my life as that individual. I can't answer you any other way. I don't know what you want me to say. I'm just trying to tell you the truth as I feel it.
B would not have consented to sex with you
I don't know that.
if she had known you were an undercover police officer.
I don't know that.
She's given evidence to that effect. Did you follow her evidence?
She may have done. I mean, but it never happened, so she never had that circumstance. That's like saying that no woman in the Second World War who was a Brit ever went with a German. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. People can say things in the cold light of day, but is the reality that? And it never happened, so we can't test it.
Are you asserting that she would?
No, I'm not certain anything. I just don't know.
Did you give the matter any thought at the time?
I clearly give it some thought because I originally did not want to involve myself in that way. But I had little choice, and I think, potentially, that may have played a part. But I'm not saying it is the only part. I'm saying there was a real connection, and that's all I can really say.
Are you saying you gave no thought at all to the question of whether she would have consented to you if she'd known who you really were?
No. If I was second-guessing that, I'd be thinking, would these people be my friends? Would I do this? Would I do that? In fact, I'd be going crazy if I was doing that. I wouldn't be able to perform the role.
What you did was completely wrong, wasn't it?
In the cold light of day, it can be seen as completely wrong. When you're in that role and in that task and you're in that circumstance and you have got nothing that's protecting you in any way, shape or means, then it's a completely different kettle of fish. You know, you would have to be in that scenario to know what the circumstance was. You'd have to be me in that scenario because everybody's treated differently.
Do you want the record to show that in answer to my question you equivocated or that you are accepting that it was completely wrong?
I'm not accepting that it's completely wrong. What I'm saying is I can only go with the circumstance I was in at the time.
So would this be a convenient time to give the stenographer a break?
Would you like a break now? Yes. Thank you. Certainly, we'll break for 15 minutes to enable the stenographer to have a break.
Mr. Morris, why did you participate in forming an emotional bond and then a sexual relationship with B?
That is a difficult question. And I think I kind of said it on my, is it Rule 9 statement?
There must be no disclosure or publication made of anything stated in the hearing between 12:03 and 12:04. Mr. Bart.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Morris, the distress that you caused B when you disappeared, the fact you had affected her emotions in that way did not stop you from continuing with the relationship.
No. But clearly it was emotional in general.
Did you not give any thought at that time to the impact you were having on her emotions?
I guess as much as the impact it was having on mine. Again, you're asking me to put myself into a circumstance that I can now really not do. Frankly, it's impossible for me to put myself in that circumstance because it's not been there for the last 30 years. And you'd have to live that life to know it. And I don't live it any longer and have basically tried to forget what it was like. So no, I don't know what I thought.
There came a time when the intensity of the relationship shifted down a gear.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
After approximately 6 months.
I don't know the timings. She said she knew the timings better. That's great.
And essentially that was because you were not committed to becoming more involved with her children, helping out and so forth.
I don't know if that was ever articulated to me, but I'm aware that's what she said.
Is that what happened?
I don't know. That's what I said. I don't know if that was ever articulated to me, but I'm aware that's what she said.
What I meant was you weren't becoming more involved with her children. You weren't.
No, I didn't want to be involved with the children at all.
You weren't taking the relationship to the next stage.
I think I made that clear from the beginning that the relationship wouldn't go to the next stage.
She was simply putting her children first at that stage.
Again, that's, well, you did ask her, so she could answer that better than I can. I can't really answer that.
You still went over to her home once a week or once a fortnight?
Again, I don't know whether those figures are correct, but they might be. And again, she tells you that.
You're not denying that you did continue?
Oh, we saw each other. We still liked each other. But I don't think it's that frequency, to be fair. But if she says that's what the case is, I'm not going to go against that.
And the relationship petered out altogether after about a year, just over?
My recollection is that she basically found somebody that would provide her with what she required.
Could we now have up, please, 28169, which is tab C76, sir? And if we expand that, thank you. This again filed as one of your reports, dated the 14th of July 1992. It's a report on an individual, a woman who is a member of the Socialist Workers' Party who associated with B. That's right?
There must be no disclosure or publication made of anything said in the hearing room between 12:38 and 12:42. Mr. Barr.
Thank you, sir. Could we have up, please, 35076 at page 159? Paragraph, this is your witness statement, Mr. Morris. Paragraph O. Thank you. My present attitude to the relationship with B and the sexual encounter with the other woman is that they happened. I regret them because it would be better for everyone if they had not happened. But at the time they happened, I was, for all intents and purposes, my alter ego and not HN78, so I lived this ultra-deep cover. I was in a situation that probably caused me not to think about the consequences. Mr. Morris, you have, since making that statement in 2022, heard B's oral evidence. What is your attitude now?
I think I said I'd rather that it never happened. And I think I said that I regret that it caused them any problems. I think that I made that pretty much clear today. However, as I said, and I think I've continued saying, living that life, that is what occurred in that circumstance for a plethora of reasons which maybe incorrectly, but I've tried to explain. And I think you need to live that life to understand how that life plays on you when you're performing those type of operations. And so what I'd like to add is that clearly, if that was something that these operations should not have taken place. It's just that simple. If you're going to turn around and say we don't want that sort of thing to happen, such operations should not have taken place.
Mr. Morris, you used B, you deceived B, and you violated the most intimate aspects of her life.
I think I've explained to you,
Mr. Morris.
I think I've explained to you, Mr. Barr, and I think...
Mr. Morris, may I finish the question?
Okay.
Are you sorry?
I think I've explained to you, Mr. Barr, and I think you've heard what I've said. I didn't use her. At the time, it was real, and our relationship was real. And at the time, I don't know what weight we're giving to each aspect of what I've explained early on, so I'm not going to go through it again, that's what the circumstance was. The fact that you're saying I've used her is incorrect. I've said that I'm sorry it happened. I understand her pain, and hopefully she can understand that she was not just some, as you seem to be trying to say, some tool that I utilised. That's not the case, and I've explained that to you.
Mr. Morris, can we move now to Jenny?
Yeah.
You've heard Jenny's evidence.
Yeah.
Is there any part of Jenny's evidence with which you disagree?
Yeah, there's a couple of bits I disagree. I can't remember exactly what she said, but there are a few bits that I'm not 100% happy with, or were when I listened to it. Now, I can't remember exactly what was said fully. But the reality is that frankly, again, it's the context of the time, the place, and what happened. It got me nowhere and wouldn't have got me anywhere. That was it, what I was thinking as I was speaking. Yeah. There was nothing in the relationship I had with Jenny prior to what took place that had anything to do with getting to know her for any reason, because she had nothing that she could provide me in terms of intel, etc., etc. And of course, they were totally, utterly real circumstances that the interaction that we had was real.
This was done for sexual gratification, wasn't it?
What are you talking about? The actual one night, you mean, that we had
Yes.
together? I think she and I, hit it off, and it would have been better if that never happened at all. When something happens with a man or a woman, I don't know what you call it, if you want to call it, you seem to put it in a vein that doesn't sit right with me.
You have heard the impact that your actions had on Jenny, as I did with B. I'm going to give you the opportunity to update what you said in your witness statement about your attitude to this. You've said it a little bit about
Yeah, I've said it
just
very
now.
clear. I've said very
Are
clear
you sorry?
I've said very clear that I wish it hadn't happened, and I'm sorry that it did happen. I don't think I've not articulated that.
Could we have up 527076, please? And could we have page 9? This is a document created by Bob Lambert,
Okay.
31st of August 1995. It says HN78 was quite emotional after a busy final week in which genuine and long-standing friendship had to be severed. It is difficult to think of any other officer who has maintained the same level of enthusiasm and commitment throughout a 4-year period. His constant good humour will be sorely missed on the team. He is due to commence work at Heathrow Airport on Monday, the 6th of November 1995. Did you tell Bob Lambert orally about what you had done with Jenny?
No.
I have a copy of the Commissioner's opening statement on the question of sexual relationships, if this could be handed to the witness, please.
Sure.
I'm going to read paragraph 24 on page 8. The MPS accepts that these sexual relationships occurred and that further relationships will be examined during the inquiry's later investigations of T2, T3 and T4. Such conduct was a gross violation of the women's privacy and human rights. It was abusive, deceitful, manipulative and wrong. The MPS apologises again unreservedly to the women whose lives have been and continue to be affected. The MPS also apologises to the wives, partners and families who have also been harmed by the misconduct of the UCOs and the failure by the SDS as managers and senior MPSB management to prevent that misconduct. Do you agree with that apology?
Not all of it. Look, it's very easy for the Commissioner to say something that he's not been involved in and don't understand how people feel who are involved in that. He talks about the fact that it's the circumstance for... The MPS also apologises to the wives and partners and families who have also been harmed by the misconduct. Well, they weren't harmed by the misconduct. What they've been harmed by is by putting the individuals into organisations for 4 or 5 years as different people who live that life, who then don't have anything to do with their families, and indeed find it more dangerous to be with their family than it is to be with the individuals where they are. You now hear a Prime Minister talking about practically doing the same thing to try and deal with the issue we've got happening right now in Southport. So you see, this is easy for people to say who do not perform this role what it is like for those who do perform it. Now, yesterday I read something which I wrote at the time. I had forgotten what I wrote at the time, and I then saw it, and the power that came out of that was my feelings of at the time. So when Bob says that, yes, I was very unhappy to leave, I was leaving people whom I, in many ways, respected, particularly the ones who were not purposefully causing distress and causing fizzes in the society of the United Kingdom, but were actually good people thinking about trying to aid and do better for the United Kingdom. Those people I had no problem with. But I had the problem with the individuals who, at the top of that organisation, which I was part of, and all the other organisations, umbrella organisations that failed off that they were utilising every issue, every opportunity they could to cause problems. I cited to my team, which I think have passed it to you, a World in Action programme. If you watch that programme, played at the time, you'll see that every member of the dead families who were involved said, these people are utilising our pain for their own ends. And by that they mean the SWP. So what I'm saying to you is that I was involved in an organisation. I saw good people in that organisation. I took on the mantle of those people in that organisation. I was, for all intents and purposes, brought to it within weeks of being involved. Because, you know, the truth of the matter is I was left-wing anyway, right? But the point is this, and I think this is what is important, that within those organisations, and when you change your mentality to those organisations, you will pay a price for that. And that price is mental illness, which most of us who perform the job in depth have suffered from for the last whatever years since they left the organisation. And that is what I have to say. It is, in fact, for me, in many ways, relatively unacceptable that the Commissioner, just off his tongue, just says that as though it means nothing to him. Was he in that role? Did he ever do that job? No, he didn't. Did he know what it was like not seeing your family grow up? No, he didn't. It's outrageous.
So would that be an appropriate moment to stop?
Yes, it would. Would everybody mind if we had a slightly shorter lunch break than usual and resumed at 2:05?